Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would do a video looking at some of the stuff which has been talked about over the last few weeks. Generally, after an update comes out and when there's no event going on, what you end up getting all over social media is posts whining about War Thunder, talking about whether it is SL, repair costs, research issues, map design, all of that wonderful stuff. And it's always fun doing these videos, even if it does attract quite a lot of negativity. So we're going to go through a lot of the issues that have been brought up by people and give my take on them. This seems to be like a bi-yearly thing that I do. A lot of the opinions do change over time, but it is quite fun to do. So yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. In this video, we are going to go over a bunch of different stuff: repair costs, BR compression, map design, all of the standard things that get brought up every single time when it comes to War Thunder. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Normally, this happens around February every year, and also happens around June/July of every year, just because there's not a ton of stuff happening in War Thunder, and therefore the whiners come out of the woodwork and are able to chat about stuff. What is also interesting is a trend that I've noticed is the same people every year who are actually making these posts. And I'm just wondering, you know, at some point, you must get to a point after years of playing the game, and seems to be playing the game religiously every day. You'd think the negativity would get to you, and, you know, you would just go play something else. But these guys just seem to stick around and just aggressively get worse and worse and worse. It's very weird, very odd. If I was ever in a situation where I felt even half of the stuff that many individuals seem to in this game, guess what I would do? I would go play something else. But there's nothing like War Thunder, as I keep getting told. Well, that's fine, but you seem to not like a lot of stuff in War Thunder, so why not go find something you do? You know, it's very odd to me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. And if you do have any issues with the game, stick them in the comments, so let's see if there are any new ones this time. So the first one that is normally brought up a lot is repair costs, and why do they exist, or why are they so expensive? Why can't I afford the vehicles that I want to play? And normally, when it comes to repair costs, at least for me, they've never ever been an issue. Even when I started playing the game back in 2013, for me, repair costs has never been a problem. I'm sat at 81 million SL. The only time where I would technically go neutral on SL is when I'm grinding the highest rank in the game. So I'm grinding 11.0, just like I have been the last few weeks. And what ends up happening is I make the amount of SL that I am then using to buy the next stage of vehicle. And the way I do this is pretty simple. I turn off my auto repair. This is something that everybody should do. There is no reason to have auto repair on. Basically, what auto repair does is it means when you click that to battle button, you can repair your vehicles then. It also means when you don't click that to battle button, let's say you close the game for the day, or I don't know, you go to the toilet, or you go and get some food, your repair cost gets cheaper by the time you get back. It's as simple as that. And one of the things that has to be said about auto repair is a lot of people have misconceptions about it and how it all works. They think that you have to wait the whole time to let the vehicle repair and then it's worth it. No, not at all. You can literally leave it for 5 seconds and then repair it, and a lot of vehicles will be cheaper based on your crew skills, or even just based on the amount that it is worth. This will just save you SL, so that is one of the simple things. One of the other things is that repair costs actually get rebalanced every 3 or 4 months, and these are all based on player stats, so how people are doing in these vehicles. So if you get a vehicle which is doing incredibly well, the question will be, Well, now I can't afford it because the SL cost for its repair cost has gone up really high. Well, you've got to work out why that repair cost is really high, and you've got to work out how other players are achieving that much SL gains in it. The SK60B is a great example of this. Its repair cost went through the roof, but its BR didn't change, so therefore it should be able to make that much SL. And could it? Yes, it could. In the SK60B, when it first came out, I went 50 air kills and 3 deaths in it, and 2 of those deaths could have been easily avoided because they were actually from my error. I ended up spading the vehicle with many free repairs left because of the fact that it was just an insanely good machine, and it still will be today because of that. But its repair costs went through the roof because it's that insane. Its BR didn't get adjusted even though it is insane, so therefore it still is at the same power level that it was before. The only thing added, the vehicles around it. And therefore, when I look at that repair cost, I go, yeah, that makes absolute sense. The vehicle itself is insane, it is really good, and at the same time, because a vehicle got added after it, it's also easier to spade now, or to modify. So now it's actually got easier to play than it was before. So if repair costs are high for certain vehicles, or they go up in BR and they still stay high, remember that vehicles get rebalanced, or I shouldn't say rebalanced, but they get repair costed every 3 to 4 months, where they either go up or down based on player skill. So you just got to work out, or based on player stats to those vehicles. So you just got to work out what are players doing with these vehicles, and how are they doing so well, or how are they doing so badly for these vehicles to have such low or high repair costs. And then if you play like that, then you're going to do a hell of a lot better than if you are just getting annihilated every game. Then the other thing that has to be understood about repair costs, because I hear this quite a lot, the example is always why in the MiG-21 BIS do I have to get 5 kills, an ace in the game, and win to be able to pay for its repair cost? Well, you're looking at it in the wrong way. It's as simple as that. Planes don't die, or tanks don't die every game they go into, right? They could die the majority of the games, they could die the minority of the games, but you have to look at it as a collective point. So you have to take into account with the repair costs every time you don't die. And I know that sounds really odd to do, but you've got to see it as an overall thing instead of a single mission thing. You are not paying the same repair cost every time you go into a match. Taking, let's say, the MiG-21 BIS, for example. What if you take light damage, but you don't die, and then you win the match? Well, you're not paying the full repair cost. Maybe you have a match where you don't take any damage at all, and just get a few kills. Then you are obviously positive SL and don't have to pay anything. Then if you have a match where you die horrifically, get missiled and annihilated, technically you have 3 games there where you've paid maybe like 1.2 repair costs out of 3. So seeing it as an idea of, well, why do I have to do this every game and get this much to be able to pay for the repair costs? No, you don't. It's as simple as that, because it takes into account all of the missions that you've played in it. As an example, I can use myself. So there is a vehicle that I've recently unlocked, and I did the decal for, the weekly decal for the British bombers. And I used the Buccaneer. The Buccaneer S2 9.3. It is not a fast plane. It has no offensive armaments. All it has is bombs and a bombing computer and flares once you unlock them, right? It is not a survivable vehicle. It's very easy to kill because its speed isn't up to snuff. It cannot go Mach 1, and it's surrounded by vehicles that do go Mach 1. So the question is, how is this thing, at least for me right now, got an 11,500 repair cost? Because surely every game I must die, surely this must mean that, I'm going to lose SL in it. And so far I'm positive in it by quite a lot. And you know why? First of all, the 10 auto repairs. The 10 auto repairs help immensely because I played 28 battles in the Buccaneer and only died 11 times. So that means I've only actually had to pay 1 repair cost, and I've so far made 200,000 SL in the machine. So I've technically made 190,000 SL, or about 200,000, since I've made 213,000 in it. So now I'm positive 200,000 in the machine, and I may have it about half spaded at this time. So in order for me to now lose money on the Buccaneer, I will have to have played another 20 matches, done absolutely nothing, and die in every single one to go negative. Do you see how, when it comes to repair costs, you can't just see them as, you can't just see them as single game things, because they're not, because you don't pay them you don't pay the same amount every time unless you are dying every game, and then you have to work out, well, what am I doing to die every game? What if I'm rushing too hard? Maybe I'm not being patient. Maybe I'm not taking the right lines. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. What can I improve to be able to not die all the time? And the Buccaneer, this one where I played 28 matches on, all of these were on stream. All of these were while chatting to people on Twitch. So technically it should have been a bit harder to play this thing, because what I've found, especially in Jets, is you get sniped a little bit more. Normally that is the BR bracket where you see a decent amount of stream snipers, and I was still able to go very positive in it and not die in the majority of the games that I've played. It's as simple as that. And it's something that has to be taken into account. I've also seen a bunch of posts recently talking about the new vehicles in War Thunder with the latest update, and why do they have such low repair costs compared to all of the pre-existing vehicles? It's because the vehicles that are put into the game, you want two things. First of all, incentivize people to play the new vehicles for obvious reasons, and secondly, they haven't been thrown into the repair cost thing. They haven't been thrown into the formula because the player stats on the vehicles aren't available. This will surely change in a few months when there are stats available for them, and then they will get readjusted, just like it does all the time. Unfortunately, repair costs cannot be it cannot be a flexible thing that is happening all the time every day. It has to be something that happens every 3 to 4 months. So you're going to have certain vehicles which have really weird repair costs, especially after BR balancing or update balancing, but it's just something you have to understand. This system cannot be alive and working all the time. It cannot collect statistics daily and then change repair costs daily, because then the system could be gained incredibly quickly, and also the formulas behind the system could be worked out very, very easily. So for me, when it comes to repair costs, I think they're completely fine. They've been in the game for an incredibly long time. Every person I've talked to who's played the game for a while, multiple years, they've never had issues with repair costs. It just seems to be a new phenomenon, or the thing that I've talked about before, where what ends up happening is somebody buys a high-ranking premium vehicle, they play it a bunch, they research an absolute ton. The SL rewards on the vehicle are lower than the RP rewards, so then they get to a point where they've researched so quickly through the tech tree that they don't have enough SL to be able to pay for everything, and then they start whining about SL costs, where if you just went through the tech tree and spaded stuff, you would actually have more SL than doing it the premium way. And then the other thing is, after the premium time runs out, the 7 to 15 days that you get in a pack, then everything falls apart because you can't afford to maintain the habits that you've created over the last 2 weeks. There are definitely ways around this to solve this issue, and mainly it's down to not buying high-ranking premiums and just playing through the game as usual. That will solve that issue completely. So the next one is compression, because BR compression is talked about endlessly by individuals who don't really seem to understand the issues with decompressing BRs to a point. Normally the same examples get brought up. Why does this vehicle face this vehicle when this vehicle is better than the other one? Why does my heavy tank have to face heat FS? Why does my high-ranking vehicle have to play something that is a higher BR than this? This isn't fair. All of these different things happen and are talked about. Now, I've talked about BR decompression a lot in the past. The issues with doing it and the things that have to be taken into account before decompression happens. And these things are incredibly important because if you get them wrong, then the game dies, which is something which is quite dramatic, unfortunately, because it creates a black hole, and we'll go through that. But the first thing about it is, in the last update, we did have some decompression. 11.0 got added, and we're going to use it as a basic example to show the things that I was talking about in the past, because we have a living example now of, what's been going on. So you've got to be really careful with BR decompression. And the basic reason is because not every nation has something. Let's say you fully decompress the BRs to a point that I've seen some ludicrous ideas. Some people saying, oh, well, we need to go up to 14.3 and then spread everything out. And so let's do that. Let's fully spread stuff out just as an extreme example. And what ends up happening is you have certain BR brackets which only have maybe 1 or 2 tanks from each nation. And then you have other BR brackets which maybe only have 1 or 2 tanks from certain nations. And what that means is if you line up that nation and you try and get into a battle, you are hoping that there is enough people playing the game to be able to populate matches at that BR. Now, let's say there aren't. Let's talk about naval, because that's always a fun one, and a great example of what happens when there aren't enough people to populate certain BRs, even when the machine, or even when it is very compressed. What happens is your queue times go through the roof, and then you have incredibly imbalanced games. So the queue times go through the roof. A lot of the time, this is because there just aren't enough people queuing at that BR. Now, let's say you have a long queue time. What's this going to do? Well, it's going to put a lot of people off playing the game, and then they're going to drop out of that BR bracket and go and find something else. So now you have even less people queuing for that BR bracket. Then, eventually people get tired of waiting, because the queue times get to 5 to 10 minutes, then they go and try and play a different BR bracket, and now guess what? You've just killed that BR. Because nobody is trying to play it, and anybody who attempts to play that BR bracket, who hasn't played it previously, won't be able to, because there'll be no matches for it. Have you ever played an online game that has no players and doesn't have AI filling in for you? You know what happens? You try and search for a game and you can't find anything. It isn't very fun. We tried to play Battleborn once. There was 3 of us who, it was free to play. We got the game, thought we'd try it out because, we were fans of similar games. There wasn't enough people populating the servers, so we didn't find a game. So what ended up happening is, guess what? We quit the game and uninstalled. Now imagine that in a War Thunder sense, but with a BR bracket. So you've effectively killed that BR bracket, and then what happens is that affects the BR bracket above it and also below it, because it means that certain vehicles don't get down-tiered into that BR bracket, and other vehicles don't get up-tiered into it either. So therefore the ones which don't get down-tiered, they become cannon fodder for the ones that they get up-tiered into, and then the other ones which are normally supposed to get up-tiered into that BR bracket, now they just get either constant their BR or down BR'd, so they become meta vehicles and they become incredibly strong. If you want a kind of example about this without the destruction of the BR bracket, because Gaijin aren't silly enough to be able to do that, if you have a look at the recent edition of 11.0, now you have confined ranges of BRs which has shifted, therefore shifting the meta. So you have 11.0 to 10.0 9.0. Then you have 9.7 to 8.7. Then you have 7.3 to 6.3. So what you'll find is if you play 10.3 vehicles, for example, you'll get into a lot of 11.0 games because a lot of people are trying to play 11.0. You'll also find if you play 9.0 or 8.7, you'll get into a lot of 9.7 games because now that 9.7 is not subject to those old 10.7 vehicles because they're at 11.0, and all of the current 10.7 vehicles or 10.3 are getting sucked up into 11.0. Therefore 9.7 becomes a meta BR, and this is something that I've been finding out recently while playing the PTZ. There's a lot of 9.3 and a lot of 9.7 games because you don't just have all the premiums there, you also have the fact that 9.7 now is the strong BR because it cannot be up-tiered into the highest rank of the game. And this is just how all of this stuff works. Now, if we take that example and imagine if you have a ton of people who are playing 10.3 and they're like, oh, I can't deal with all of these 11.0 tanks, we're getting annihilated, and then you expand the BR brackets a little bit to save them, so you put them to 10.7 and then everyone else goes up to 11.3. So now 10.3 is now, in a little bit of a better place, but now 10.0 is the meta BR, and everybody plays that instead. So you now just have a way of shifting the meta either upwards or downwards depending on what is at those BRs, and then you have other ways of shifting the meta by changing certain vehicles BRs, which is something that will happen next after this BR decompression that we've had, and then there'll be a lot of crying about that with people not understanding why they're happening. There's going to be a lot of vehicles from 9.7 probably going up to 10.0, maybe some 10.3s going down to 10.0, stuff like that. We're going to have to see what happens because it's just how it is when it comes to these things. But let's just, as I said, let's take 11.0 to 10.0. Everybody stops playing 10.3 and 10.0 because it's really frustrating to get up-tiered constantly and get battered by these 11.0 vehicles. Now what you have is you have 9.7 being king, so everybody plays 9.7 because you hardly get up-tiered, and if you do into 10.7, you don't have to deal with 10.3s, 10.0s because nobody is playing them. So that means that 9.3s, 9.0s, and especially 8.7s have a really rough time against 9.7s. So therefore people start playing 9.0s because it's not fun getting battered over and over again. And then what that does is that affects 8.3 and 8.0 because 8.0, you can't get up-tiered into 9.0 again, and 8.3 they don't have to deal with 9.0s, but they can't get up-tiered into those 9.7s that are really meta, so therefore all the 7.7s and the 7.3s get up-tiered into 8.3, and then you can see how meta BRs start actually forming. You can start thinking about these ideas. This is why 7.3 is a very strong BR right now, because you have 11.0, 10.0, 9.7, 8.7, 8.3, 7.3 as a meta BR. So if a 7.3 gets up-tiered into an 8.3, guess what? Quantitative matchmaking, only 4 members of the enemy team can be 8.3, therefore you're facing major 8.0s and 7.0s, and 6.7 is also quite a BR that a lot of people like to play because of the different different options, so therefore 7.3s get dragged down a lot of the time into 6.7s and face them and annihilate them, because 7.3s are quite powerful in general. You also have new additions such as Marder, which is 7.3 alongside the Leopard and the M48, very strong lineup. I'm pretty sure it's actually going to push the Leopard back up to 7.7, but we'll have to see what goes on. So you have all of these factors going on that you have to work out, and just screaming BR decompression as if it's like this fix-all to everything without even thinking about any of these ideas is really not going to help at all with anything. It's like screaming into the void. It's just going to be one of those things which is it's like a catchphrase, you know, where it seems like if you go around any gaming community, they all have like this one issue that keeps getting brought up over and over and over again, as if it's like the promised land, you know, the greener grass on the other side, that if it is fixed, which it can't be fixed at all ever, they can only be reduced, then what ends up happening is the game will be perfect, and that's just not the case. You know, it's as simple as that, as shown in this 10 minutes. The map design one is kind of interesting, because I see a lot of people complain about the map design of War Thunder. Even though every update we get more and more maps in War Thunder, and therefore they should be more varied, so you should have a bunch of different playstyles. No matter what happens, it seems like the new maps get banned anyway, so I hardly ever see them. Like, I've only seen Red Skies maybe 4 times since the updates come out, which is very sad, because it seems like a pretty decent map, but I just haven't played enough of it to even, you know, work out if I enjoy it or not. So map design happens in 2 ways. Either people don't like the fact that the maps are too small, they don't like the fact that they're too big. It reminds me of individuals where no matter what you do, you know, they're going to complain. They could ask for, oh, I want a hot meal. You give them porridge, and then they go, well, I don't like oats. Okay, well, I'll make you a steak dinner. Oh, well, you know, I don't like meat. Well, what about some steamed vegetables? Oh, I don't like vegetables either. No matter what happens, you know, there's going to be people who complain, because the fact is, when it comes to maps, the biggest factor of your enjoyment on them is the vehicles that you play on them. There are certain vehicles that suit certain types of maps, and the great thing that Gaijin did last year is they gave the community access to the map rotation filter, so you could have a direct impact on what you play in the game. And one of the things that is cool about the map rotation filter is I don't use it, and therefore I can kind of use it as a barometer to see what I play in the game. And I can see what people are banning because of certain maps that I just never see anymore, and it just gives me an idea of what people enjoy playing. And the trend, at least to me, seems to be towards smaller maps, towards maps which are high-octane, high-combat maps. So if you like the larger maps, you know, you can use the map rotation filter, you can like the larger maps, you can ban a smaller map, and that will give you more chance of getting onto a larger map. But you've got to understand that because of the amount of varied maps in the game, and because we have access to the map rotation filter, you're going to see a bunch of different maps, but at the same time there'll probably be themes around the stuff that you play, because there's a lot of people who want to play very specific maps, and therefore you're going to be dragged into them quite a lot. So the people you have to blame is not Gaijin themselves, because Gaijin have put a ton of varied maps in the game. And if you're like, where are the large maps? Well, Red Skies is probably one of the largest maps they've added for ground forces recently. If you're a fan of small maps, there's a ton of them which have been added over the years. What you have to look at is not Gaijin about, you know, the maps themselves. You have to ask the community at large why they are liking and disliking specific maps that you are not a fan of. Why is that? And you have to work out why that is. Why is it that you keep playing maps that you don't like? Why is it that, a lot of people seem to like playing these maps? What is interesting about them? And, maybe work around them. Maybe try and go forward with it. I'm a fan of large maps. I like them. I like the space. I like being able to move around. I like not having to engage enemies head on. I like being able to use, specific positions to my advantage. And that's, to me, incredibly fun. But I know a lot of people like smaller maps, so I end up playing a lot of them. So I try and learn the map and try and take what I do on larger maps and do them on smaller ones. And it seems to have a positive effect the majority of the time. And another thing that's great about maps is I see a lot of complaints about them, but I never see any fixes. And the thing is, whenever it comes to the thoughts that you have in your head, The thing that always runs around my mind is this idea of point, evidence, expand. So this map is bad, this is why, this is, these are extra reasons, that's the issue. Then we can analyze the issues that people have with the maps, and if it is, very distinct, then we can look for solutions. We can talk about things that can be done to be able to fix them. But when specific examples are not brought up, it's impossible to be able to actually attack this issue head on, because what ends up happening is you just get into this conversation where it's like, well, big map bad or small map bad, and it's like, well, okay, how do you fix that? Oh, we'll just remove all of them. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, let's just do that. It's a very simplistic conversation designed for Neanderthals, where now we've progressed as humans in general. I feel like we should have a bit more nuance when it comes to talking about these things. And also at the same time, one of the best ways of, if somebody says, okay, maps are bad, right, all the maps are terrible, we need new maps in War Thunder. There is so many tools at your disposal to be able to make some maps if you want to. We have the CDK. It works every once in a while when they update it, but no, it works the majority of the time. I know a lot of map makers. They make some really cool stuff on there. There's nothing stopping people from giving it a go. Also, writing down your ideas. Present an example of something which you would like to see in the game as something that you yourself are interested in. And if you do that, then, maybe it gets implemented, or maybe it gives somebody an idea down the line so they can input it into the game. Just saying stuff like map design bad doesn't do anything. It is useless. And what is much better is, this is why I don't like this, here is how I would improve it, or here is how I would design a map around this idea. And then you're going to turn around to me and say, well, that takes a lot of effort. Yeah, you're right. A lot of stuff takes a lot of effort, and if you're passionate about it, then you will be completely fine with putting the effort in. And then you'll say the next thing, yeah, but Gaijin have people who are paid to be able to make these things. Why should I try and do this for free? Fine, don't do it then. Don't have a passion about it. Stop complaining about it and piss off. It's a much better situation, because then you stop worrying about it, and then you stop going on about it, having a negative mindset, and you let the people who have access to all the statistics, have access to all the player feedback instead of just yours, because you are not the most important person in the world, just like nobody is when it comes to War Thunder. They have access to the collective pool of feedback, and they can make decisions based off of that. It means that it is much easier, it is much better for you, your mental state, and everybody else who doesn't have to listen to you. The grind is too much, or the amount of research required to get to the high BRs is too much, is something I hear quite a lot as well. And there are simple things to this. So the first thing is Gaijin periodically lowers research costs of vehicles once other vehicles are implemented. This is why no matter how high the BR goes, like if we get to 12.0 or whatever it is, the highest echelon vehicles are still going to be 380, 390, and 400,000 in RP. They never add vehicles which are, let's say, 500,000, because the top echelon of the game, that is what they've worked out, which is fair for them and fair for the general player. And at the same time, it means that, that is good for them, and it's like the equal balance between research and time invested. The other thing as well is, I'll just throw in, without premium vehicles, I can still research a 400,000 RP vehicle in 2 days. So there are people who can do that. I saw Bryce, when the update dropped, be able to research the J7E in about maybe 20 hours. And that just kind of shows you how quickly some people, and he wasn't using premium vehicles, he was using the F5A in the Chinese tech tree. It just shows you how quickly certain people can research through these things. So understand that there are people who, can get this stuff done in a day or two, where some people seem to take weeks. At the same time, as I said, they reduce RP accordingly. There'll probably be RP reductions soon, maybe in the next few months for certain vehicles, which will make them easier to grind. And also, at the same time, stop seeing War Thunder as a game where you have to get to the top tier. Right? Stop seeing it as an end goal that you need to get to 11.0. If you've seen a bunch of, you would think that the highest echelon of War Thunder is horrific. If you look at a bunch of other YouTubers and a bunch of other streamers, when they talk about it being a hellhole. It's not a hellhole. It's just different playstyles compared to the rest. And generally, once you get modifications behind you, it's not a bad experience. The initial hit is very hard because of the lack of modifications. But understand that it isn't a hellhole, but at the same time, you should be looking at other areas of the game to enjoy instead of the fantasization of top tier. There's a ton of stuff in the game, right, to have fun with. Different nations, different decals, that you can grind. You have different achievements, work on spading vehicles, like modifying them, so you can focus on just doing individual vehicles. And if you focus on these small individual things, like the weekly decals, like the challenge events that they do, like just a vehicle and modifying it, you'll realize the grind is not that bad, because you're just basically focusing on a very small part of it. And then once you do a bunch of those small parts and you get those little additions that you end up getting, done, then guess what? You research the next vehicle, and then you do the same thing with that, and you just keep plodding along over and over and over again, try a bunch of different experiences, get a bunch of variety, and you end up having a great time. And that is the key to War Thunder. The key to War Thunder is to not get to top rank the fastest possible, because if that's the case, everybody would be playing the minor nations, because you can get up there the quickest. But the fact is, the way to enjoy War Thunder, the way to have fun and longevity in War Thunder, is by playing as many vehicles as possible, trying a bunch of different things, and giving everything a little bit of a go, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, instead of playing the same damn premium vehicle over and over and over and over and over and over again to be able to get to the high ranks, and then getting there, not having enough SL to pay for anything, not having enough experience in the game to enjoy anything, and just getting yourself pumped every single game. Try and enjoy the different parts of War Thunder. There's a ton of really cool stuff in the game, all from rank 1 all the way up to rank 7. Give them all a go, have a bit of fun, focus on dailies, focus on specials, focus on battle pass challenges, focus on all these different things instead of I need to get that next vehicle. It's what I've done for years. It's meant that I've kept enjoyment in the game for an incredibly long time, and I enjoy it to this day because I think about spading the next vehicle. I don't think about researching the next one, because I know for a fact researching the next one will come in time if I focus on the small stuff. It's about the little things in life. Appreciate them. The last one is bugs, and how after every major update there are bugs in the game and people really don't like this. I played War Thunder when it was extremely buggy back in the day, especially when ground forces came out. You would have tanks just fall through maps quite a lot of the time. If a tank ever touched another tank, the tracks would magnetize together and you get stuck, or one would ping off into the distance. So the game is in a hell of a lot more stable state. It gets more stable pretty much every major update. Even though new bugs are added, they are normally fixed pretty quickly. So the idea that War Thunder is getting more buggy is ridiculous from my experience when it comes to the game. And also at the same time, all you have to do is have a look at the Xfix series or the change logs, which the Xfix series is based off, to show you how many bugs they fix pretty much every other day. They have a dedicated team to bug fixing. They fix a ton of them. The game is absolutely massive as well, so you'd expect stuff such as this. And another thing to note as well, every game has these issues. For some reason, there is this belief that War Thunder is really buggy and other games get everything perfect. This is just wrong. There's even games such as Call of Duty, like Warzone, I remember, where they had game-breaking bugs in their major updates for weeks on end before they were patched out. One of them being if you picked up specific guns, I'm not entirely sure what caused it, but if you picked up specific guns, it would create this black mess around you as you were wandering around the place, and this meant that people couldn't tell where you were, you also couldn't see, and that was in the game for a long time on the release of the update that caused it. So understand, bugs are just a thing in gaming. It's very unfortunate. It seems to be something that affects multiplayer games quite a lot. I would actually say War Thunder is in a much more stable state than it has been in previous years. And it's just one thing you have to, deal with. If you have game-breaking bugs, make sure to report them on the forums. And guess what? They will get fixed. They've actually started adding the reports to the changelogs to show you how your impact or the impact you can have on the game by reporting these things. So make sure to do. And yes, it is very frustrating when bugs happen, but at the same time, they are inevitable. Just like they are with any other video game in existence. So those are the major things that I see constantly in the community in general being complained about. I've seen these things for years. The conversations around them are very tiring because they don't actually move forward. Nobody actually thinks these things through. They just say the same thing every single time and then normally follow it up with the game will die because of it, or I can't see War Thunder happening in 2 years, or I'm guessing Gaijin are trying to kill their own game, and all of these things. Even though the population of the game keeps increasing by average year on year, even when it gets a ton of press coverage, and even when a bunch of new people come into the game, even if they get dissuaded by these people who spread this information. The one thing I have to say at the end of this is understand that I do believe that there are issues in the game, and I do talk about them quite a lot. But I think the general issues that are brought up by individuals are asinine, completely useless, and also majorly unfixable a lot of the time without having dramatic effects on other parts of the games, or which will annihilate it for other people. A lot of people at this point, I can already read the comments. Tech, why are you a Gaijin shill? Why do you promote Gaijin and tell me that they never do anything wrong? They do. One of the things that is really wrong right now is how volumetric shells react with armor, and has been since their implementation, where if two plates are sat together, it doubles the plate strength when they meet. So if you hit between two plates, the shell won't go through. There you go. There's an issue I have with the game, and it's been there since Update New Power. There's a ton of other issues I have with the game too. But this video is focused on something different. It is focused on constant conversations that I see from individuals, the same individuals who've been around for years talking about these things, and I hope at some point they find happiness in their life so they can move on and start enjoying stuff instead of having a negative experience and having to bring negativity to other people. Games are supposed to be about fun. If you're not having fun, you need to find something else to enjoy. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.